A man who truly loves you will never stop doing these three things. Carl Jung. Love, for most of us, begins in fire. The fever of wanting, the intoxication of discovery, the overwhelming sense that someone finally sees you. But what happens when the fire dims? When the ideal collapses into the real? When the sweetness of a man's charm gives way to the complexity of his soul? Most men flee that moment, not because they don't care, but because they never learned how to stay. A man who truly loves you loves with presence, not performance. He doesn't escape into silence or hide behind ritual. He stays, he wrestles, he becomes. And in doing so, he proves that love is not a declaration, but a devotion. Jung didn't describe love as something that completes you. He described it as something that tests you, something that shows you everything you are, not just in the light, but in the dark, especially in the dark. Respect, the quiet strength of seeing you whole. He never raises his voice when you disagree, not because he fears conflict, but because he has made peace with contradiction. He doesn't need you to mirror him. He doesn't need to win. He doesn't need your silence to feel powerful. Because a man who truly loves you does not confuse dominance with strength. He knows that real strength is restraint. It is patience. It is the dignity of holding space for someone else's truth, even when it threatens your own. Jung taught that love is not about possession, but about individuation, the process by which two souls become more fully themselves, not less, in the presence of each other. And respect is the crucible where that individuation begins. When he loves you, he doesn't try to mold you into someone more digestible. He doesn't make your emotions a problem to be fixed, or your boundaries a wall to be scaled. He reveres the mystery of who you are, even when it unsettles him, because he has learned, maybe through failure, maybe through loss, that intimacy without respect is just attachment. And attachment, when untethered from reverence, always turns to control. This is the first thing he never stops doing. He respects you, not just when you're at your best, not just when you agree with him, but when you're furious, when you're withdrawn, when you're not who you were yesterday. He doesn't reduce you to your worst moment, because he has looked into the depths of his own. He's confronted his shadows, what Jung called the rejected parts of the self, the ones men are often taught to suppress: vulnerability, fear, dependency. He's seen what happens when those shadows go unloved. He knows the damage they can do, so when yours arise, when you tremble, when you roar, when you doubt, he does not panic. He does not belittle. He does not try to make you small so he can feel big. He listens, and in that listening, something sacred happens. He makes room for all of you, not just the version that flatters him, but the one that frightens him too. To respect someone is to let them be free, even when that freedom costs you comfort. It's knowing she might outgrow you and loving her enough to support her. Growth anyway. It's knowing she might change her mind and refusing to make her loyalty the price of your love. It's knowing she has wounds and not rushing to heal them just to ease your own discomfort. Respect is not passive. It is not just letting her speak. It is choosing again and again to hear her, even when what she says disrupts the story you've been telling yourself. It's in the details. He doesn't check his phone when you're speaking, not because it's a rule, but because it would never occur to him to turn away from something sacred. He doesn't interrupt to correct you, because his love is not defensive. He doesn't withdraw when you shine too brightly, because he's worked too hard to find his own light to feel threatened by yours. This kind of man didn't come from nowhere. He is the man who sat with his own silence long enough to hear what it was trying to teach him. He has faced his inner critic and realized it sounds a lot like his father, or the world, or the voice of his own unworthiness. And rather than passing that voice on to you, he chose to disarm it. Respect for him is not a virtue. It is a discipline, a form of spiritual practice, a radical resistance to every model of masculinity that taught him love is control and that emotions are weakness. He does not need you to be smaller so he can feel taller. He does not need you to lose so he can win. He does not need to erase your truth to preserve his pride. He sees you, and in that seeing, you are not reduced. You are revered, because he knows that the soul of a woman is not a thing to be managed. It is a force to be met, and when he meets it, with his full attention, something ancient awakens in both of you. Not lust, not fantasy, but reverence. The kind of reverence that sits quietly beside you during your silence, that does not flinch when you speak your pain, that does not run when you demand your space. The kind of reverence that says, I do not need to own you to love you. I do not need to understand you to respect you. I do not need to agree with you to stand beside you. He has made peace with the truth that love is not about taming someone's wildness. It is about witnessing it without fear, without flinching, without needing to name it anything but beautiful. And in that witnessing, something sacred is returned to you, your wholeness. Number 2, the sacred violence of truth. Communicating honestly and openly. Truth is not always kind. And yet, there is a cruelty in its absence. Silence, when it becomes habitual, does not protect love. It buries it. Jung once wrote that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. When a man cannot speak his truth, his grief, his rage, his uncertainty, he suffers in secret, and that silence metastasizes. It becomes resentment, coldness, distance, the quiet unraveling of intimacy. But the man who truly loves you, he does not let silence do the speaking for him. He has learned, sometimes the hard way, that emotional honesty is not a performance. It is a responsibility, a vow, a living pulse inside the relationship that must be kept alive, even when it hurts. Because to truly love someone is to risk the fragile piece of illusion for the deeper, messier truth. This is the second thing he never stops doing. He communicates honestly and openly, not because he always knows the right words, not because vulnerability comes naturally, but because he knows that withholding his truth is another form of abandonment. So he speaks, imperfectly. He tells you when he's afraid. He tells you when he's confused, lost, ashamed. He tells you when the child inside him doesn't know how to be a man in this moment. And even more courageously, he tells you the truth when it would be easier to lie. When you ask if something's wrong, he doesn't say, I'm fine, just to keep the peace. He trusts you with the storm because he no longer believes that love can only survive in the sunlight. This man has studied his own shadow, not in theory, but in lived experience. He's seen what happens when truth is postponed. He's seen the corrosion, the erosion, the tiny betrayals of authenticity that eventually lead to rupture. He has learned that honesty is not the opposite of love. It is its most intimate expression. So he doesn't play emotional chess with you. He doesn't weaponize silence. He doesn't make you beg for clarity. He tells you, even when it's hard, even when it means admitting he doesn't know who he is today, even when it means saying, I don't have the answer, but I want to find it with you, even when it means saying, I hurt you, I didn't mean to, but I see it, I own it. He understands that honesty without tenderness is violence. But tenderness without honesty is a lie. And so he finds the middle path. Not just emotional transparency, but emotional maturity. The willingness to hold the other person's truth, not just share his own. He asks questions, not to interrogate, but to understand. He listens, not to reply, but to receive. And in moments of conflict, when the ego screams for defense, he does the harder thing. He stays. He softens. He remains curious, because somewhere in the core of his being, he knows that love is not a negotiation of power. It is a conversation between souls. And sometimes, that conversation is uncomfortable. Sometimes, it means staying in the room while she weeps. Sometimes, it means hearing her say things he doesn't want to hear. Sometimes it means allowing his worldview to be shaken, not to appease her, but to evolve himself. This man has unlearned the cultural lie that emotions are weakness, that men must be stoic. That vulnerability is dangerous. He has seen that stoicism without intimacy is just a mask, and that love dies behind that mask, slow and silent. So he takes the mask off, even when it terrifies him. He doesn't need to be right. He needs to be real. Not every truth is easy. Some are jagged. Some carry echoes of trauma, insecurity, shame. But he offers them not as weapons, not as wounds, but as bridges, an invitation into his inner world. He says, "This is where I'm afraid you'll leave me." He says, "This is the part of me I don't want you to see." He says, "This is how I was taught not to feel, and I want to unlearn that with you." And when you bring your truth to him, your doubts, your confessions, your anger, he doesn't collapse. He doesn't retreat into silence or rage. He listens with the full weight of his attention and the humility of a man who knows that love demands more than comfort. It demands confrontation, not confrontation with you, but with himself, with his pride, his fear, his conditioning, his history. This is what Jung called conscious relationship. It is not driven by fantasy. It is built by fire. Fire that burns away pretense. Fire that tempers ego. Fire that forces a man to say, "I will not hide from you," because hiding from you is hiding from myself. And in that fire, something is forged. Trust. Not the kind of trust built on promises or predictability, but the kind built on presence. When he speaks, you believe him. Not because he's perfect, but because he's accountable. When he listens, you open. Not because you're unafraid, but because you feel safe. This man is not loud in love, but he is honest. And that honesty is the heartbeat of the relationship. Even when it trembles, even when it breaks things, even when it means starting again. Because starting again with truth is better than continuing with a lie. And so, day after day, in moments large and small, he chooses this path: to speak, not to impress, to listen, not to win, to reveal, not to manipulate, to understand, not to control. This is the second thing he never stops doing. He never stops telling the truth, even when it costs him, even when it changes everything, even when it terrifies both of you. Because he knows a love without truth is not love, it's illusion. And he didn't come here to play pretend. He came here to build something real. There will be days when love feels like distance, when your voice is tired from asking, when his silence feels colder than solitude, when you begin to wonder if this is still the same man who once reached for you like he was afraid. You might disappear. You won't always feel close. You won't always feel wanted. You won't always feel chosen. But then he does something quiet, small, unspectacular, and you remember he stayed. Not in the way that's romanticized, not with flowers or speeches, but in the way that is hard, the way that matters. He came home when he didn't know what to say. He reached for your hand when his own heart was fractured. He sat beside you, not to fix you, but to not leave you alone in your becoming. This is the third thing he never stops doing. He shows up consistently, especially when it's hard. Carl Jung knew that the human psyche doesn't seek perfection. It seeks integration, wholeness. And wholeness is not made of light alone. It includes grief, doubt, failure, regression. To truly love someone is not to walk with them only when they are radiant, articulate, and easy to love. It is to walk with them when they are angry, when they are lost, when they are halfway out the door of themselves. And a man who truly loves you understands this, not as an obligation, but as a privilege. Because showing up for you is not about what you give him in return. It's about the person he becomes in the act. There's a temptation in modern love to romanticize escape, to justify vanishing when it gets hard, to rename emotional flight as boundaries and detachment as healing. But this man has lived long enough to know true healing happens in the staying, in the returning, in the imperfect, courageous act of presence. He has learned, sometimes after walking away from what he loved, that absence doesn't bring peace, it brings ghosts. So now, when the relationship hits its winter, when joy is scarce and warmth is a choice, he does not leave. He leans in. Maybe he can't articulate it, but part of him knows that every relationship is a crucible. That love will, inevitably, one day ask of him, will you stay when I no longer make you feel special? Will you hold me when I no longer make you feel needed? Will you stand beside me when my becoming threatens to eclipse the man you once were? And his answer, quiet, maybe trembling, but clear, is yes. He is not consistent because it is easy. He is consistent because he has made a vow, not just to you, but to love itself. Because Jung taught that love is the path of individuation, and individuation requires friction, disillusionment, surrender. The man who truly loves you is not afraid of those things. He welcomes them because he knows that the you he fell in love with will change, that the person he becomes will change, and he doesn't need you to stay the same to keep showing up. He shows up when you cry and won't explain why. He shows up when your ambition outpaces his own. He shows up when you don't recognize yourself anymore. And he sits in the waiting with you until you remember. He's not here just for the high points. He's here for the full arc, the bleeding, broken moments when the story doesn't make sense. The mundane Tuesday nights when nothing needs fixing, just noticing. The small glances across the room that say, I'm still here. I haven't stopped choosing this, because love for him is not a feeling, it's a practice. And like any sacred practice, it has rituals. He checks in when he says he will. He keeps the promises no one would notice if he broke. He does not weaponize his absence to punish or gain leverage. Even when he's hurt, he doesn't disappear. Even when he's unsure, he doesn't betray. Even when he's drowning in his own storm, he doesn't let go of your hand. There is nothing performative about this kind of love. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need applause. It only needs two people who keep choosing presence over perfection. Jung once wrote, where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, their love is lacking. And so this man has put down the sword of control. He has disarmed the part of himself that confuses withdrawal with strength. He knows that real power is in staying with the fire. It doesn't always look graceful. Sometimes it looks like falling asleep, with your back turned and still reaching for her foot under the covers. Sometimes it looks like doing the dishes after a fight, because love does not wait for the heart to feel ready. Sometimes it looks like holding your tongue, when every instinct wants to be right, but you choose to be kind. He doesn't abandon the relationship in the name of protecting his peace, because he knows Peace is not found in solitude. It is forged in commitment. He is not a perfect man, but he is a present one. And in a world where love has become disposable, fleeting, shallow, his presence is a rebellion, a revolution, a daily whisper that says, I'm not leaving, even when I don't understand you, even when I don't feel close to you, even when I'm unraveling inside myself. Because love is not the absence of struggle. It is the willingness to struggle together. And when you look at him, not during the highs, but during the lows, what you see is not a man who has mastered love, but a man who has surrendered to it. A man who has chosen to walk with you not just through joy, but through uncertainty, through grief, through the ordinary. He does not show up to be thanked. He does not show up to be seen. He shows up because that's what love does. This is the third thing, the final thing. He never stops showing up. Because in his heart, in the silence between your breathing and his, he knows love is not something you feel. It is something you live. Every day, every storm, every time you forget, and he reminds you, we are still in this. I am still here.